Hi everybody, welcome back to Flame's Pyro Art Tutorials for Beginners. And we're looking at the Viking pyrography portrait. So I've made a little start just to get a feel a little bit for the subject that we're going to be wood burning. I've just done some blocking in really of some of the points, like shadowing of underneath of the shield. Just start building some of the shoulder definition and the muscles of this guy, because it's a muscly warrior. So when we're looking at subjects like this, it is absolutely superb, the things you can do and the detail you can really get absorbed into, and to build like sort of a 3D body of a subject, it just takes time and shading in of the right directions. If you think about how a human body would be, you know, how the muscles and how the shape and contour of, say, a shoulder. A shoulder isn't flat, is it? It's a, you know, it's a round, muscular shape. So we have to show that in a wood burn. I mean, with this guy, he's got massive shoulders, you know. I don't think there's many of us that have got shoulders as big as this guy. But then we look at stuff like, say, the pectoral muscles, and there's so many things we can do with these pecs to make them have depth and volume to them. So what we would be thinking about is, underneath, this is a big, like, breast muscle. I don't know what you'd call a man, but the breast muscle anyway. And you'll think underneath and around this muscle there would be darker points, wouldn't there, where there's less light getting to it. You know, as the muscle folds over, then it has to fall away to the darkest point where there's no light getting to it. So if we start off from a point of, there is the underbelly of the muscle, again here on the other, I think they're called pecs, pectoral muscles. Here on the other pectoral muscle, we've set a marker. There is the underneath of the muscle. This is part of the bicep here. So where the bicep meets the main structure of his torso, there is going to be less light, isn't there? You know, because the muscle is blocking the light from getting into that area of the body. So there is a great example of capturing some depth straight away. Burning dark into this corner. But then we have to look, on my reference picture, he starts having some of his chest muscles been shown also in this corner, so we have to take them into account. But right in this very deepest recess, and I'll zoom this in on the camera, right underneath this muscle, it will be dark because there'll be no light getting at all to this area underneath the muscle. So it's immediately a point where we can start to show this arm is sat up higher than the body. And we do that just, again, I've got my heat set at 2.5 on the Optima with my trusty space shader at the minute, just while I feel this piece out, because like I said in the description, when we start new projects, it takes us a little bit of time to feel out what we're doing, you know, and build a muscle memory and build a connection with the piece that we're working on. So let's take, for example, the middle of these pecs. Now, if you think about it, if he was a really muscular guy, it'd be like muscular breasts, wouldn't it? So there must be a point where the muscles meet, and because they're not flat, there's actual depth to these muscles. We show them coming out by, on this side of the muscle, we shade in this direction, you know, going with the tricep. Well, let's say it was pec. Sorry, the pec muscle. The other side, if we've put the light shadow on this side, then this side won't really cast the same shadow, will it? Because this one is going in and there it's coming out. So we can set another great depth point there. Okay, so there's another. These are just early stage points that we want to put into our pyrography portrait. Then I'm looking at this farm muscle on his shoulder here. There is where this pectoral muscle like shapes round. I'm gonna have to move the board, I'm sorry. You know, it's all just about shading now. It's just making something look. I know my pencil lines are very thick at the minute and they will be coming off very quickly as we do certain areas. I mean, these guys is so muscly, they've got that big muscle on the top of the shoulders. I don't know what you'd call that muscle. Bodybuilders would know, but you know, there's a big muscle there as well. And back to this shoulder, on my reference picture, I can see he has many different shades and contours to this muscle. And at one point down here, there is like a shadow being cast as the body is 3D. You know, it's not a flat body, is it? So, in the natural light of this really good quality image that I got off Shutterstock, I can see shadows that will help me over time, to really build depth and volume to every muscle. I would advise always, when starting, keep your heat low. I mean, I'm using the space shader at this point just so I can get into actual tight areas that I want. We'll go into things like this, well, I'll just describe it now as this arm muscle is shadowed here and it's meeting the breastplate. There is a dark line that's coming off from the shoulder. At this stage we don't want to go too far with it, because as we build this body, our mind's eye and our perception of all the different muscles and all the different shapes will begin to change as we build the shading. And these sorts of subjects are absolutely superb for building depth and understanding how depth perception works. And as I said before, time is irrelevant. You will connect with your piece. You know, that's what I like to do. I like to take the time, keep my heat low to start with, as I build my connection and bond with the piece of art that I'm creating. I don't want to rush the process. I want to study the body, study the shapes, study the feeling of it all, and try and absorb as much content as I can. And just take my time in building up the body shape. And this can only well, it can be done on a higher heat setting if you want to quickly blast through burns, but really depth and perception stuff can best be achieved, in my opinion, by turning the heat down. By having that heat lower, it gives us so much more opportunity gives us time to get a feel for the character And that's why I love doing things like horses, because horses have lots of muscles, don't they, in different, you know, contours and shapes. I just love to burn a full horse. I did a bull a little while ago. That was a really fun burn, trying to, you look at the muscles on a bull, the big beasts. That was quite a few months ago, well, many months ago, and I've advanced a lot in my skills since the first time I burned a bull. But I just love to build things with definition and depth. If you can achieve a look that looks 3D, then you've really cracked it. And down here now, let's take some of these lines out as we go. It may look like I'm outlining, but I'm building the depth, looking to capture where the light casts off to show off this guy's muscular physique. Back in the day, like Viking, I don't know if Viking warriors were massive muscle men like this. I mean, I think this is a pretty modern guy, just dressed in Viking clothing. But if there were big massive Vikings like this back in the day, I imagine you'd if they asked you to give them your goods, you give them to them. You wouldn't tackle to a massive machine like this, would you? A huge guy. You'd just say yes sir and give it to him. Now, as the axe, the main point where this axe meets the body is actually on his shoulder, isn't it? You know, if you think about it, it's around here. This is there's the main point where the axe is going to be resting on this muscle. As it rests on his arm and comes forward, this is where it's going to lay to rest. And we build shape and depth by darker ridges shaping up into the direction that we want, and like sort of tapering off. We call it blending. Blending the shades. I mean, I could spend hours showing you this video and burning this subject. There's so much to learn off a piece like this. If you can pull it off, it's a really good achievement. If you can make this guy look 3D, then you're really on your way to creating some magical pyrography. Look for all the little lines and ripples and break points. Sorry, I'm just going to press my picture. Now he has massive veins on his arms. So at some point of the vein at the back, there has to be a shadow cast to show that it's lumped out. You know, it's a lump to build that structure in. And this particular muscle has got a branch going off down and round this bicep. Again, this still is the darkest point, so it's going to go much darker. But we don't want to dive in and just turn the heat up to 4 and just make it black. It'll look far more superior if we take the time to build the shading up. We're still looking at the moment at the casting of the shadow of this pec muscle. You know, we need to give it some real depth. And so underneath it is going to be one of the darkest points because less light's getting there. I know I'm repeating myself, I'm sorry. But where there is less light getting to a particular area, then it's going to be darker. So down here on this arm muscle, down at the bottom of his arm where it breaks away from the big pec muscle, again it's going to be darker. So already we're beginning to build some sort of basic shapes, and this piece will take maybe a couple of days to do. I will do some lessons on parts of it, and I will time lapse some of the other parts. We're only at 24 minutes. Let me think what else we can have a quick talk about. This arm guard is set forward. So this arm guard is shaped, isn't it? It's shaped round the arm. So up here on the top of the arm guard. If it was folded round this guy's forearm, we can show that by adding some basic shading to it, contouring round. Here at this whole point up there, there is some highlight. So let's take a pencil. It's right where this buckle, there's a little buckle here, and it's right up here. And it may widen out in patches and thin out in patches as well. But all the way up here. Right to the end. It'll get thinner at the end. This is one of them points where you can show shape. And I'm just penciling it in, just to let my mind know there is a shadow there. Also, here, with the way the light is casting, we have another shadowed area that comes out from here. It's just rough guidelines for now. And if you put your pencil lines in very thinly, with your shape, as this one will be folding, won't it? You know, this is gonna fold round. So if we just put like lines just for our own mindset to say, look, the shadow is actually turning this arm guard. So if we think about the arm guard, if this is its bottom center point, then down here is the underneath of the arm guard, isn't it? So remember the principle, where there is less light, it needs to be darker. But what we'll do is we need to burn this in the shape that it's moving. So make your strokes in the shape that you're trying to achieve. So in this case, I'm trying to make it look like it's coming out from underneath and coming up and round. So I know right at the very bottom is going to be its darkest point at the back. Right underneath all this is right underneath. Because we're not burning too high, it gives us the opportunity in here. Looks like this arm guard like wraps all the way round the guy's arm. So of course in there where the hand is, there's going to be a little dark recess in the lip. So in there later we'll have to go black, because again it's a point where there's no light. Get into it. As your pen heats up, you may need to adjust your setting on your pen, because you may find as it's been working for a few hours, the heat will build, and as you're just dabbing and feeling your way along, you may get surges of heat that you don't want. Remember, you want to control the heat and the heat not to control you. Never let the heat dictate to you. You stay in control of what depth of shading. And so at this point we can start rubbing out some pencil lines. As we rub out pencil lines, it'll get lighter, because when you burn next to graphite, it does look darker at first. Then as you rub out your reference lines, it will lighten up. Up here we've got all his beard and his face and his hair, so we'll worry about that later. But today's lesson was just an introduction to starting the basic structure of the muscles of the body. We've got fingers and stuff that I'll be wrapping round this wooden staff. And I wouldn't usually put them in at this point, but with the rule of thumb underneath the hand, there'll be no light getting to that area. So we go darker, but we go darker in a shape because the hand is gripping the handle, you know, it's grasping round, isn't it? So the shading has to be slightly rounded. Here we've got his stomach muscles. And this one's a large muscle. So the underneath of it is actually down here. And at this stage all we're doing is looking at just feeling the piece out, just finding where the dark spots are, where the muscle shaping is. Here we have his pants. So there is a certain little point here on his pants where there is a darker patch. Don't know how far it goes at the moment, so I'm not going to pay too much attention to it, but there's going to be pleats in these pants so we can show that they're not flat. You know, these pants are coming round his body, so we will show that later in the burn. Doing muscles and stuff is perfect for pyrography. Because the natural skin tone just a shade, and it works so well with this kind of pyrography. Now I've done a winged Pegasus, you know, the half horse, half man. And that was really good fun because you had the body of the horse as muscle, and then you had this guy on the front of it with all his muscles as well. That was a great piece to work on. Here at this stage, we're nowhere near got enough bulk to this muscle. You know, we've really got to think of it like a rounded object. So a shading will build, but it's got to build in the right structure, which is just moving up and along. Just barely using the point at the moment, just trying to give it some body. Trying to give the body some body. Remember, this is the darkest point where this bicep is. This will be our first great example area of pushing the body back and bringing this arm forward. As the arm is like cocked. Same with up here on these shoulders, on the shoulder muscles. They aren't flat, are they? They come round, so they must be shown as if they're coming round from the back to the front. To do that just by going to the edge, pulling your pen down and round, and depending on what thickness you want to build that bridge, you would just keep pulling down and around. And think about when you're doing the shading of the muscles, move the wood so you make sure that, you know, when you do your burns of shading of, say, a particular muscle here, if I was to burn from the top, any heat bleed I would get would be on the top side of the muscle, but I want to show that this muscle has shadow from underneath, so you must cast your shadow from underneath, and any heat bleed that you get, which you will get just a slight bit of discoloration, will be on the right side of the shadow, if you get me. You do have to move your wood around to get the shadows in the right areas. And this big muscle shadows right down to here. Wasn't quite sure of how wide it should be yet, as we're still feeling the piece out. And then as we come down around this shoulder, We have to move in a direction inwards, pulling the strokes in. To move in the line of how the shape would actually move. That's really the trick to it, is making your movements with your pen along with the shape that you're trying to achieve. If you're trying to achieve an ovular shape, you won't burn flat. Well, you won't go down like that, you will burn round. That is really, in essence, how we achieve depth and a good look, is when you're burning, moving the shape of the object. Here's where the shoulder dips in there before it goes up to this huge muscle. Don't ask me what these top muscles are called. I have no idea. What time are we at? We're at 47 minutes. Like I said, we've barely scratched the surface. I'm sorry that we can't get lots of work done in an hour. And I am very grateful if anybody does want to watch for the hour and study composition and depth, and really wants to go to the next level with the pyrography. We start out maybe by burning some words, and then we might do a basic dog or whatever. But if you get bitten by the bug, the pyrography bug, you may really want to advance your skills. And by watching tutorials like these, this is how I learnt. It does help. In how wood burning can be done in such a way to make a flat piece of wood look 3D. And don't forget, I'm using the Optima from Carver Tools. The pens is what I like about his pens, because in a previous lesson I'd mentioned about sanding your wood so smooth. This wood is really smooth, and the pens from the Optima really glide over the wood. There's no grab, there's no resistance. I remember the first time I used the Optima, and I did say to the guy, wow, I said, the glide is unbelievable. And he said, told you so. Because he goes through many processes before he ships these pens out to people. They are machine made, but they're also handcrafted, machine made. You know, there is a certain point in the process where he has to do it by eye, so he's a skilled engineer. But that's going to be it for today. I'm afraid we're at 50 minutes. It's such a shame. I would have loved to carry on taking you through this wood burning of this large Viking warrior. It's a shame we're going to have to time lapse so much of it, because I would have loved to have live burned it all with you. But I know no one wants to sit through hours and hours of me building up a 3D body. So we'll leave it there for today. Hopefully you can see the very early beginnings of the shape of the body. I know we haven't really got much done today, but we've discussed a few parts of how to build muscle and depth to the muscle. So hopefully you've taken away just one, even if you've taken away one thing from today, I'd be happy. So if you want to see more videos in the series of this Viking burn, if you hit subscribe, give me a like to let me know you're watching and I'm not just talking to myself and burning away to myself, which I'll happily do, but it'd be nice to, if someone could put a like or something to let me know you're watching, that would be great. Okay, so this is Neil from Flames Pyro Art saying farewell for now. Happy burning, everybody. Enjoy your wood burning. Stay safe. Take care of yourselves. And I'll speak to you all very soon. Okay? Much love. Don't forget, give us a like, hit subscribe. Much appreciated. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.